Welcome to New York Voices. I'm Rafael Pi Roman. You know, New York City has always been a melting pot of people and cultures, and nowhere is this more evident, perhaps, than in Washington Heights, a neighborhood that has gone from Jewish to Italian to Irish to Dominican, Cuban, and Puerto Rican. The people change, but the story remains the same: the dream of a better life and a longing for home. Such are the themes of In the Heights, the vibrant new musical which started as a college production and will open on Broadway next month. I had a chance to speak with the creator and star of In the Heights, Lin Manuel Miranda, between rehearsals.
5, 6, 7, 8.
Lin Manuel, how did In the Heights come to be?
I started writing In the Heights when I was 19 years old. I was a sophomore at Wesleyan University. I'd written a couple of one-act plays in high school, and I guess the short answer is I was homesick. I was going to school in Middletown, Connecticut. I was living in a Latino program house with other Latinos, really for the first time in my life. I met other kids like me who, grew up in Upper Manhattan or the outer boroughs of Manhattan, and we're all suddenly in the middle of the suburbs and sort of found ourselves clinging to each other and missing bodegas and missing the city. So I wrote the kind of show I'd want to be in.
So how much has it changed from the college production to the soon-to-be Broadway?
There are 5 notes that survive. In Washington Heights. That's what has lived from 2000 till now. There's a lot of chord progressions. A lot of the music has stayed the same. I don't think there are any songs that survive.
Could you give me a brief synopsis of In the Heights?
Sure. In the Heights is the story of 2 days on this corner of Washington Heights, New York, which is in Upper Manhattan. Take the A to the top. And we see the story through the eyes of Usnavi, who is a Dominican bodega owner who, he has his corner bodega, and all the stories pass through his bodega. We learn the story of Nina, who's just home from school and has a secret that she's about to tell her parents, and we see a little bit of her courtship with Benny, who works for her parents at their taxi dispatch on the corner. We meet Daniela, Carla, and Vanessa, who work in the salon next door, Vanessa being Usnavi's longtime unrequited love interest. We have someone who hit La Bonita, who hit the numbers, but I'm not going to tell you who that is. We have a blackout, and it's sort of this, at the end of the day, the story is really a snapshot of this neighborhood on the brink of transition. It's getting more expensive for all of the residents, and we're really trying to capture the flavor of this neighborhood before it changes.
Let me ask you, you said that the music that's inspired the music of In the Heights was a soundtrack of your life.
Yes.
I wonder specifically how the story of In the Heights reflects your personal experiences.
It's sort of a funhouse mirror version. My parents were both born in Puerto Rico. I had an abuela who was not my abuela. She raised my father actually in Vega Alta, Puerto Rico. She was his babysitter, and when my parents both came here, my dad got involved in politics, as you know, and my mom was a psychologist. They both worked full-time to sort of, keep the lights on, and so we needed help, and she raised me. I was very aware that my neighborhood was different growing up because I didn't go to school in my neighborhood. I went to Hunter on the Upper East Side with kids from a totally different socioeconomic status from me. They all lived on the Upper West and East Sides, and they all thought I lived in the Bronx. Like, they had no conception of life above 96th Street.
I recently interviewed the wonderful young Dominican writer, Juno Diaz.
His book, I must have given out 20 copies of that book for Christmas.
It's fantastic. There's a lot of similarities between his work and your work. One of his biggest preoccupations is about how many of us, who are hyphenated Americans, feel like we don't belong anywhere, that we are homeless. And that seems to be a theme of this play, home, that Puerto Rico's home, that the Dominican Republic's home, Cuba's home, Washington Heights is home. I wonder if you, although you were born here, do you feel that what Gino Diaz is talking about reflects your experiences? It's an issue for you. Where do you belong? Absolutely.
And I think the beginning of the writing of the show really became about finding what that is, finding what we define as home. You know, if Fiddler on the Roof is about this community that is, you know, tradition is the same and they've done the same thing for centuries and suddenly the world changes around them, I think In the Heights is the story of, well, when we've come from all different places, what do we choose to keep? What stays with us? You know, what part of me is Puerto Rico? What part of me is Upper Manhattan?
96,000. Here we go. 5, 6, 7, 8.
96,000. The music of In the Heights, which is a combination of salsa, merengue, reggaeton, hip hop, and many other things, brings a new voice, will bring a new voice to Broadway. You have also somehow managed to preserve the traditions of the Broadway musical.
Damn, we only joking. Stay broke then.
I'll be downtown. I'll get a nice studio. I'll get out of the barrio.
For real though, no matter how we feel, real slow down the highway.
I think musical theater at its best is one of our most thrilling American art forms. My parents, theater was very special. It was not like we were theater goers. It was a once a year, for your birthday, if you're good kind of thing, as I suspect it is for most New Yorkers, and certainly most Latinos. But we had those cast albums. My mom would blast the Camelot cast album because they're from a time when, you know, popular music and theater music sort of merged a little more. Regardless of the genre of music, I've always been attracted to music that tells stories, whether it's Rubén Blades in Decisiones, on, you know, Buscando América in the 70s, or El Padre Antonio y su Monaguillo Andrés, which is one of my favorite songs of all time, or, you know, Mind Playing Tricks on Me by the Ghetto Boys from the early 90s, which is an incredible story, a harrowing story. I always saw it all as storytelling, and I never saw any of it as mutually exclusive.
But this knowledge or this acquaintance that you have with the traditional Broadway musical comes from your parents.
It comes from my parents, and it also comes from being a theater nerd in high school, you know?
Well, talking about your father, Luis Miranda.
Yes.
I've known him for more than 20 years. He's a brilliant guy, you know, a very respected member of the Hispanic community in the city and beyond. But you know, I've never seen him break into song or bust a move. So my question is, how did you get your musical talent? I mean, your ability to sing and to dance and to put these things together.
I hate to say it because I hate to make his head any bigger than it is, but I got it from him. My mom got kicked out of Glee Club in high school. God bless her. You know, he and my aunt, my titi Yamila, his sister, they were the ones who gathered around the piano at every party, and they would start singing the old songs, Mi Viejo San Juan, and all those tunes. And my dad, at any party, is the guy who will dance with every person in that room.
So I just missed those parties.
You missed those parties. You should have come over. They were great. But yeah, no, I get it from him.
Now, if I didn't know any better, I would have imagined that you wrote these parts for the actors who are playing them because they fit so well into those parts. How difficult was it to cast this play?
You know,
to get that fit?
It's very hard. It's very hard. We have several advantages. One, which is that we're in New York City, which is where all the most talented people in the world come. And two, we have a vastly underused and hungry Latino group of actors in the city who, you know, can't just wait around for the next West Side Story to be remounted. And so we have a phenomenal cast.
Okay, we got traffic on the west side. Get off 79th and take the left side.
Chris Jackson has been with the role since 2002. And with Robin De Jesus, I mean, Robin De Jesus can land any line in the world. And so, you know, you just, him and Andrea Burns as well.
Yeah,
so
all these guys.
No, 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 no. When you have a problem, you come home.
I consider Priscilla Lopez the reason we're all here. I mean, I think Morales' role in a chorus line in 1975 is one of the most realistic and three-dimensional Latino characters we have in the musical theater.
As the writer of the play, do you ever find yourself distracted on stage by focusing on other people, the way they're delivering your lines or singing your songs?
Yeah, that happened a little in previews when we were
right?
off Broadway. There was this one moment at the top of Act 2. I had this scene with Vanessa, and she says, "You know the number one thing I can't stand?" And I'm supposed to say, "Morning without my coffee," and she goes, "Being left alone." And it's like the slow burn. I'm trying to think of better lyrics for something else during this particular run, and she goes, "You know the number one thing I can't stand?" And I say, "Being left alone," which is her line, and she kind of looked at me and said, "Exactly." And walked away. She was great, but she looked at me like I was crazy. And so after that day, I was like, you know what? I just have to keep the actor hat on, leave the rewrites till after the show is over.
You know, one of the most touching things for me in the Heights was its strong sense of family. You know, the sense that one generation will sacrifice everything for the next, and the only thing that bothers them is that they may not be able to sacrifice enough. You know, the song Inútil captures that so well. I mean, grabs your heart.
I will not be the reason that my family can succeed. I will do what it takes. They'll have everything they need. For all my work, all my life will have been useless.
And of course, there's the perennial abuela. We all had an abuela back in the island somewhere, you know, the person who takes care of everybody, no matter if they're related to them or not. Again, you know, as somebody who grew up in a Hispanic culture, boy, that was as familiar to me as tostones and maduros.
Right.
I wonder what your experience has been with non-Latinos. Have they felt the same kind of identification?
Yeah, well, you know, one of the most validating things about the run off Broadway was I got to meet a lot of older residents of Washington Heights and former residents of Washington Heights, people in their 60s and 70s who said, you know, I grew up here in the 40s and 50s, and it was all Irish, and it was all Jewish, and there were blocks that were entirely Greek, and you captured it, and it feels exactly the same way. And I think the story of Latinos in the United States is the latest chapter in the quintessential American story, which is that, you know, we come here for a better life, and we come here so that our children can go farther than we did. And that is universal, and I think relates to anyone in this country.
Now, as you said, you've been working on this for 8 years now. On and off, more on than off.
This has been my young adult life.
Do you ever say to yourself, geez, I wish I could do something else. When am I going to get to do something else?
If I ever felt done, I think I would say that. I haven't felt done yet. You know, I think we are so close to, and you know, today was bittersweet. Today you got to catch a little of our last rehearsal in the studio before we go into the Broadway theater. And I made big changes today, and my list of changes is getting shorter and shorter. So I think I probably feel a little like J.K. Rowling did around book 7. I've spent a long time writing it, and we're almost done. I never felt tired of it. I'm doing what I love to do.